A quorum being present, this town meeting is called to order. If you are willing and able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Murphy moves that we take Article, what are we on, 11? No, 14, excuse me, Article 14 from the table. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor of taking Article 14 from the table, please raise your hand. Those opposed? And the motion carries. And Ms. Wellman.
Does this work? Oh, it works. Yes. Oh, hello, town meeting. How are you this evening? All right. Little weak, guys. Okay. So we were on questions when we finished the other evening. I'm thinking we have maybe another question from Mr. Wise. I don't know. I'm my power lead, man.
Mr. Wise?
This one, there we go. You got to bend down or pick up. How about that? Jackie, would you put it up? So when we last were here, there was a general request by some in the body to ask that the town go back and look at how we could achieve the revenue concept. Legal counsel has done that, and this is the language that we are hereby recommending an amendment for in red. And provided further that the Recreation Division is hereby directed to collect user or program fees from all court users, regardless of residency, for the purposes of maintaining and operating the courts or for any other purpose permitted by law, until such time as the user or program fees collected and any donations received by the town for the construction of pickleball courts equals the total cost of the project, including any debt service related to borrowing.
Is there a second? Second. Okay.
So just a little bit more context before I hand over the mic to any questions or amendments. Please don't amend, because this is very carefully crafted as it is. So I will not take any friendly amendments. But a keynote from Ivrea here is this. This, in essence, is an instructional motion at the end of the construct, right? There is no hard binding to it. But if town meeting votes in such a way, it's very hard for select board or town management to not do this, right? And that's a key point. In addition, the user fees must be placed in a 53D recreation revolving fund. The fees may be used during the fiscal year for the operation of the pickleball program only. However, at the end of the fiscal year, any of the 53D recreation revolving fund has more than $100,000 in the account. Such funds must be transferred to the general fund. Once part of the general fund, the funds may be appropriated for any purpose, including debt payments. So, and then finally, there are very strict MGL rules about fees, so any fairness is addressed by those MGL rules. Fair summary? All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, we are now discussing the proposed amendment. Discussion, yes, Ms. Binder.
Thank you, Angela Binder from the Great Precinct 5. This is an instructional motion in essence. We spent an hour and 10 minutes discussing how kiosks would be paid back through fees, and after 2 weeks, the kiosks were shut down, and we received almost none of the $110,000 that town meeting voted on to, it was part of the reason why we voted for the kiosks, was because we were told it would be paid back through that money. This is smoke and mirrors. It's smoke and mirrors. It's an instructional motion. We can all say, oh, this makes me feel good, this money will be paid back, but in essence, in fact, the select board, the town manager, can just say, don't like it. Three pickleball players?
Please use the
Three
microphone.
pickleball players might go to the select board and say, this isn't fair, and 3 select board members will shut this down. $1 million in debt, $200,000 from the Burbank Ice Arena Fund, and $100,000 from Recreation. We will not see this money. It just happened. We will not see this money. Mr. Wise said it's in essence an instructional motion. It's ridiculous. Think about the $1.5 million that this will cost, the $1.3 million that's coming out of town funds. Instructional motions don't really matter. We won't see this money.
Mr. Arena?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Arena, Precinct 1. I want to thank Town Council, Mr. Wise, and the other members of Select Board and School Committee who worked on this. I have a much more optimistic view of this. The 2 hours spent by the body here reflects the interest in this activity, and Town Council has given us language that's acceptable. If instructional motions have no purpose, you'll expect a motion to adjourn immediately after regular session, because none of the ones in this session will matter either. I don't happen to believe that, but taking the earlier comment to extremes, that's exactly what the implication is. I don't know why the kiosks don't work. It could be electronics, it could be design, it could be user adoption. But I know 2 things that will work: gravity and concrete. And as far as I know, gravity has never failed us. So as long as you can bounce a ball on a hard surface, this project will work. In terms of the nature of the instructional motion, I've heard already from members of our elected officials that they are taking this seriously and understand the intent of this body. I have no doubt whatsoever that this will be implemented and it will be successful. Frankly, the kiosk should have been looked at more carefully. We have courts all over this town. This is just another playing surface.
Ms. Snowdoxer?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I'll stand on my tiptoes. I have a question about this amendment. I'm wondering, does this mean that once the $1.3 million plus debt service is raised, there will be no other fees?
My understanding is this is to cover the borrowing, or is it to cover the full construction?
Total cost of the project. As the language says, it's to cover the total cost of the project, including any debt service, so interest payments to
Interest
do with
payments,
it.
too.
And just to address the question directly, and sorry, Mr. Moderator, Tom Wise, Precinct 4, apologies. I specifically asked for that portion because we do not charge usage fees for our basketball courts and tennis courts around town. The only reason why I asked for this first portion was because I felt like I saw in the audience that there was a need to manage and recover the expense. I didn't think it was fair to charge for pickleball courts on a public property ad perpetuity, in essence.
And if I could just add one thing, can I add one thing?
Sure.
We did have this similar model. I mentioned this on Monday, and we did this with the tennis pass program several years ago when the tennis courts opened. And this was to offset the cost of the lights down at the tennis courts, as well as meet the high demand, because we were noticing that everyone was coming in from other communities. So the tennis pass program really helped us out. So before this even got brought up at town meeting, we were already chatting internally about staff, about maybe needing some type of program like that to make sure that our residents first and foremost got the priority. But this model does work, and it does offset a lot of the costs on the courts. So, and just to touch on Angela's comment, I can only speak on behalf of myself, but if town meeting were to vote on this instructional motion, it would go further than just me. It would go to the Recreation Committee, it would go to the Select Board. All of these policies and fees would be flushed out, they would be fair, and I would honor that's what town meeting wanted, and it would happen.
Ms. Snowdoxer?
Thank you so much for working so hard on this, and I've had conversations that give me insights that I, as someone that hasn't been involved from the inception of this project, wouldn't know, and I appreciate knowing it now. My leaning, and I heard you, Mr. Wise, about absolutely no amendments, but I know I was part of using the tennis courts once upon a time, and they were very popular, by the way, in response to the comment last town meeting. We couldn't always get courts when we wanted them because they were so busy. So I would love for this to have a way to both have accessibility for everyone, but also to have a way that generates some funds for sustainability of these courts. There are going to be repairs to the fence that are needed. It's taking staff time. There's going to need to be sweeping after snowstorms, after rainstorm, whatever it is. I'd love to see some fee structure that doesn't preclude people having some times that aren't scheduled for a fee. But I'd love to see some of those funds not stop after we've reached the 1.3 million.
Yes, and these past programs are very nuanced. There's so many different ways that you can structure them. You could do peak times, you can do all day, you could have a tennis pass program for a 60-plus person, you could have a family pass. So there's so many different ways of doing things. You can have the open play on, Saturdays from 9 to 12, where people come with their paddles and they can only play for an hour and a half. And so there's different ways to do it, and it's just so nuanced that, again, the Recreation Committee and RPPA and other residents could come and weigh in on what this fee structure and this past program would look like.
So this amendment would not preclude you continuing to charge for the sustainability of this area, along with your, the caveats of the past program that you just described.
Yes, we could keep charging after, if we decided to.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your thoughtfulness.
Now back to the other side.
Hi, I'm way too short for that. Laura Noonan, Precinct 4. I'm also on the Recreation Committee. I just wanted to say that this article clearly...
What happened? You 911? Yeah. Oh, we need to get.
He's conscious.
Yeah.
People are nervous, so.
Yeah.
Dana, I think so. Dana Green.
Okay. We're going to take a brief recess. Call this meeting back to order.
Well, maybe.
Before we go on, I want to reiterate that we will be taking people who haven't spoken first on this amendment, and then when we get to the main motion, I would ask if you already spoke even the other night, try to let newer people speak. There's a lot of people that want to talk on this. So where were we? I think we were over on this side, yes.
Hi, Laura Noonan, Precinct 4. I'm also on the Recreation Committee. I clearly see value and importance in recreation in this town. This article and pickleball as a sport in general clearly has a lot of support. I've gotten cards to my house. I've gotten emails asking me to vote for this. I think that we already spoke about this article for 2 hours on Monday night, and the main topic that was coming up over and over was that we just needed to find a way to monetize it so that it could support itself and equaling the cost of the project. So I want to thank Town Council for carefully crafting language that gets that across. And I do intend to vote for this in its present state. And I just wanted to also say that I don't think that pickleball is analogous in any way, shape, or form to the kiosks. Part of the problem with the kiosk is that nobody went there once they were in, and that's clearly not going to be the case with pickleball. So I do think that this will have an opportunity to create some money and pay for itself. That's it, thanks.
Okay, Ms. Doctor.
Nancy Doctor, Precinct 1. I'm actually very uncomfortable writing warrants during town meeting. I think this was rushed through. I'd like to see it come back. I'd like us to actually not spend 2 nights trying to write a warrant. I don't think it's appropriate. I'd like to support the pickleball, but I am not going to vote for either of these. And I'd like to see it come back next year, not in the fall, next year. I'd like us to actually understand that in April of next year, we're going to be voting on the Community Preservation Act, which actually would pay for pickleball. I think that's actually a better funding source. So I would like this body to push this back out and have it come back with a totally different funding idea, not to be collecting fees. I'm not even sure how that's even going to work, but I'd like it to be funded for everybody, and I think the Community Preservation Act is the way we should be funding this project. Thank you.
And the other side, Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ed Ross, Precinct 5. Also on FinCom, although I'm not speaking in that capacity. In the one way that I will is that I've heard over the last kind of several years from the pickleball community, but I specifically on what's been in front of us for this body. I've been kind of on both sides of this. I've really been waffling on whether to support it or not, given the topics of the first couple nights of town meeting and all of the concerns around the operating budget. I will say with the proposed language here, and again, thank you to Town Council and staff for the work on it. This moves me in the right direction. Having something that funds it and marries along with contributions and other funding sources that the town's going to be able to use puts us in a position where I will support this amendment, and I would support this change, but then also support the greater amendment.
Ms. Perry?
Paula Perry, Precinct 1. I, too, appreciate the time and effort that was put into putting the wording behind this to address the funding source. And I do have trust where we can all keep them honest. If we're concerned we're not following this, then we show up at selectmen meetings. We know how this works. So I appreciate that. Even though it is unique, I don't know why pickleball is being called out to have to pay for their space, unlike basketball, unlike tennis, and so on. But if that's what it takes to support this, then I fully support it. I did want to clarify, when it said regardless of residency, does that mean it would have to be the same rate for Reading people as out-of-towners?
No, it does not have
Okay.
to be the same rate. We
Thank
would
you.
intend to charge non-residents a higher price, higher fee.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, Mr. Pacino?
Phil Pacino, Precinct 5. I am the original maker of the motion to table, and I'm glad to see at least we came back with something we can maybe live with. My question, and I'm a little bit concerned, pickleball is very hot right now. So I visualize that, the 100,000 will be raised this year, next year, the year after. 5 years down the road, when pickleball cools off, because they all cool off, how is the money going to be raised at that point if there's a shortage? My question is how the funds will be raised if there is a shortage.
Ms. Wellman?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. That's a great question. Pickleball has been popular in Reading for 10 years and has been underserved by the court space that we have. So it's a fair question. I'm not really concerned that the favor of pickleball is going to go out. It is still on a stratospheric rise. The data shows that nationwide. And as younger people come into the sport, I anticipate that we will continue to see great demand on our court system. If we see waning participation in pickleball, we can adjust our fees to make them more palatable so more people play. We don't want our fees to be in a position where it is a disincentive to play. So that's something that we want people to be accessible, we want people to play it, and we were looking at a variety of models, of fee models that we can implement, and different platforms we can use to make that, to answer the economic question, right? Because it's an economic model that we have to craft.
Thank you for that answer, but it doesn't really answer the question, what happens down the road when there's a shortage? Right now pickleball is very hot. We'll have no problem raising the 100,000, but eventually part of that debt is going to be paid by me as a taxpayer, assuming I'm still here, which was a whole different story. So I just, you've tried, but I just can't support it because I don't see the revenue 5 years down the road, 6 years down the road, 7 years down the road. I think there's going to be a shortfall, and it's going to fall back on the taxpayers to make up the shortfall. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Barnes?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jonathan Barnes, Precinct 5. Mr. Moderator, I am considering a motion, but I'd like to ask a question if I can first.
Right now, we have an amendment before us now. We will work on that unless you're trying to amend the amendment. Well, I'm not necessarily trying to amend the amendment, but to perhaps clarify something for it. So may I ask my question? Yes, your question.
I know that the language in red has been presented as an instructional motion, but I'm not sure I understand why it's...
Can I just straighten? It's technically part of the motion. What they're saying, it is tantamount to an instructional motion, but it really is part of the motion.
And I guess that's my question,
Yeah.
which may give rise to a motion. Why is it tantamount to an instructional motion if it is a part of an instructional motion if it's part of the language?
That would be a question for the town council.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ivrea Freed, Town Council. So many years ago, town meeting adopted General Law, Chapter 40, Section 22F, which empowers boards and committees within town to set fees. And so those are the bodies that are empowered to determine whether their programs carry with them fees. So while you can direct and form the Recreation Division to charge fees, it's ultimately within their purview and not the purview of this body.
So, I'm sorry, Avery, may I ask, I think I understand that, and I take it then you would say that if I were to move to place that language or to change this to say, move that the town vote to appropriate $1,500,000, et cetera, for designing, engineering, constructing, and equipping new pickleball courts at 0E of Haverhill Street, for which pickleball courts the Recreation Commission shall collect user and program fees. Would it have the same problem, or would that not be permissible?
Correct.
Ms. Reed?
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Yes, this body can't control fees in that way. So if you changed it with the Recreation Division shall charge fees, even though it reads as a shall, which would require in normal cases, it's not, it would have no teeth. It's not an action that this body can require the division to take.
Or to say that thank you, I appreciate that, or to say that another way, it is something which, as Ms. Binda has pointed out, is conceivable that the select board would not authorize. Am I correct about that?
Those are policy decisions. I think that town staff has indicated their willingness to follow the wishes of this body.
Thank you, and I do trust town staff, and I'm much more satisfied with this language. I would have preferred if it could have been obligatory, however. I support the concept, but I will say that, I support the concept of the pickleball courts. I think it would be an asset to the town. I am also concerned about supporting it at this time without a funding source, pretty much for the articles that we passed the other night for Recal and for Killam are subject to a town vote, and I would not want to have this body be perceived or have this particular article perceived as in any way a negative influence for the town not to support spending the funds that we are seeking for Recal and Killam. So I much preferred to see this language in here. I would much prefer to have it be obligatory, and therefore, while I'm inclined to support it, I am not completely convinced at this point. Thank you.
The other side?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Joy Bolio, Precinct 7. I spent this week asking everyone who came through my business, and then I came across, and even some of our high schoolers, asking them what they would prefer and what they thought about the town spending this kind of money on this kind of project. And I would say it was completely unhelpful for me because I got pretty much equal yeses and nos. I received quite a few postcards, which I really appreciate. I received emails and I had conversations, and they did not help me in any way. So that said, I have a question regarding the fees. Am I correct in that I heard that we've done this before? We've had fees that repaid a project.
Ms. Wellman? Oh, Ms.
The
Wood?
tennis pass program didn't pay for the cost of the tennis courts in its entirety. They were made to offset the cost of the lights that were being used and to manage the demand that was on the courts.
Okay, so that was charged to residents as well as non-residents?
Yes.
And is that fee process still happening?
No.
So when did that stop?
When people stopped buying the tennis passes, and it kind of self-regulated itself because the demand wasn't as high.
And were the lights paid off?
Well, we still pay a light bill every year out of the
I
revolving
understood,
fund, but
like the functioning of them, but were the structures that were invested in paid off? Do we know?
I can't speak to that.
Okay,
I'd have to
understood.
go back and look at all of each year that the tennis pass generated that revenue, how much revenue it was.
Absolutely, understood. Yep. My point in asking that is obvious. I was wanting to see, like, if the town was monetizing the tennis courts, and in order to repay back the lights, did we actually collect those fees for the appropriate amount? My next question is...
It was the light usage, too.
The light usage, okay. Understood, thank you. My next question is, do you have a timeline for this project? Like, if it gets approved tonight, what's the next timeline?
Yeah, so if it's approved tonight, then the design documents, the construction documents will be designed and completed by our designer Activitas, and then it will go to bid. I expect it'll probably go to bid in the fall or late summer, depending on how long it takes them to finish that work. But we also have to go through permitting. And so we have to go in front of the Conservation Commission and other relevant town bodies to follow whatever permitting needs to happen. We need to liaise with RMLD some more about, because the base bid would include lighting, like plumbing, the
Yes,
lighting,
understood.
right? So we'd have to go through that whole process as well. So I think the hope would be that we would be able to bid it and then start construction next spring.
Next spring, okay. So hypothetically, if this came back to this body in November, would the timeline change for next spring?
Yes, because
It
we
would.
wouldn't begin permitting, we wouldn't do design documents, we would put everything on hold.
Okay.
We wouldn't flesh out, we might work a little bit more on the fee program, but if it, we're not going to talk to vendors about what that's going to cost. And then, of course, if it delays till next fall, it'll cost more money.
Okay.
You'll have escalation.
So no matter what, we're not having pickleball this summer?
No.
Okay.
No.
When would this debt show up on our books if we approved it tonight?
I'm not sure when the CFO would put this tranche out for borrowing. I'm not entirely sure. She's not here tonight.
Okay.
But it would be borrowed in FY '26.
So not until next year?
FY '26 begins in July.
It begins in July?
Yeah,
Okay.
so she'll put it together with other borrowing, but it probably wouldn't be until right before we're ready to go to construction.
Okay.
We
So
have
if
enough money for design.
So if we decide yes or no tonight, then it's possible that it would start next summer, and we would start paying for it sooner than that?
The payback on
theory?
that, it would be, it's already built into what the budget would be, so it would
Okay.
be, yeah.
Okay.
And we would intend to start whatever fee program that would begin at, once the courts are open.
And do we have an idea of how long that would take?
How long
Construction.
construction would be? I'm not sure.
Point of order? Use the mic.
I heard the question. It's not a debt exclusion. This is.
understand.
Okay.
It's not debt exclusion, it's not going to appear on your tax bill.
I understand.
Could
Thank
you
you.
just use-
Yes.
It's not,
Yep,
it's not
it's in
going
the
to
budget. Thank
appear later, and it's addition to your tax bill. It will be part of our
What-
existing budget.
Understood. So what I'm trying to get at is if we decide now versus if this were to come back to us in November, what would be the implication on our budget now versus then? Like, would it end up hitting at the same timeline is my question. It sounds like the answer is no.
Just
No,
to
I think
remind
it-
you, we are speaking about the proposed amendment. That's what's on the floor right now?
With the fees?
Fees.
Yes.
Yes.
okay,
Because
so-
one,
Okay, I just want to make sure
Thank
that's
you.
what we're staying on topic.
I hesitate to speak for our CFO about when things are going to hit and when she's going to borrow
Okay.
funds. So I think that would be kind of a disservice. What I can tell you is there would be escalation if we
If we
come
wait.
off the timeline we're planning.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Herrick?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Steve Herrick, Precinct 8. I had a whole bunch of things to talk about in the actual warrant article, but now I've been distracted. When we got together on Monday evening and I was contemplating this, Mr. Wise actually cut me off at the pass by suggesting the idea of a, let's call it a pay-to-play type thing that would cover the cost of this project. There's obviously a lot of passion out there for it. What we heard was that evening that this collection of fees can actually be used to pay for it. So that kind of sort of killed it in my mind. So I see what's been done here. Clearly, this was devised by lawyers to sort of dodge around some of these issues. But as I read through this, I see some things here that really concern me and don't actually, in my mind, address the actual heart of the matter. We're talking about taking on, I don't know what the debt was. There's a $1.1 million. I mean, according to this, I'll get to this later if I get a chance, potentially $1.5 million of debt. But whatever that debt ends up being, we have service on that, we have capital costs we're putting into it, and what we're suggesting here is that we're going to be collecting fees from the court users for the purposes of maintaining and operating the courts or for other purposes permitted by law. Okay, so my takeaway from what the discussion we had on Monday evening was that once that money comes into the Recreation Committee, it's kind of one big happy pool, and they can more or less kind of do whatever they want with it. So the money that comes into that pool, do we have any idea how much money is coming in? Do we know what kind of maintenance? Do we know where that money is going to end up going? This strikes me as very, very, very unstructured right now. I look at this and I don't see any guarantee that the town is going to see any substantive offset to the debt that we're taking on or flushing money back into our capital accounts that would help offset the cost of this program. The intent is great. I think it's great. I like this. This was what I was thinking when we got together on Monday evening, that if we had a pay-to-play type thing, that could defray the cost. The way the laws are written, the way the state runs this thing, the way our town is, whatever our bylaws are, I don't think this really addresses the problem in my mind. The town is still on the hook for these costs. We may or may not receive income from these user fees. I do have concerns, based on some of the information that we learned on Monday evening, that these numbers may be strangely inflated because we have people who are, apparently one person is accounting for a seventh of all of our court reservations, which seems puzzling by any stretch of the imagination. But I don't see that this is necessarily going to offset it. I would like to see something come back to this body where we really understand what's going to be coming in, how this program is going to be run, and have an actual way of reducing the impact to the taxpayers. To me, that's what this comes around. I can't have a conversation about this project without thinking about the two things that we've already passed, which everyone's going to be complaining about. We were lectured about the pending override. It's coming. Sooner or later, it's coming, to go back and say, well, we spent $1.5 million, and yeah, we sort of had a plan that it was going to be covered by fees, but it didn't really work out, because there's really not a commitment here, and quite frankly, we can't force that commitment in this body. So to me, that means we need to go back to the drawing board, figure out how to structure this thing so that we can go to the taxpayers with confidence and say, hey, we're not going to make you pay for this. We have a lot of passionate pickleball people. We're going to figure out a way to let them do this without an impact to the taxpayers. Thank you.
The other side.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Lynn Arena, Precinct 1. If it's the appropriate time, I wanted to request a roll call vote on this subject.
That requires 20 town meeting members to agree with you. Are there 20 people who would want a roll call vote on this?
Point of order. I rise to a point of order.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, good point. I'm assuming you mean the main motion, or do you mean the proposed amendment?
I'm sorry, I meant the main motion.
Okay. I will, probably should have done it after this is done, but I will
Okay.
take it now, just so we'll know. Are there 20 people who would want a roll call vote on this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. You're not right now, we're not voting on anything, but to require a roll call vote, we need 20 voters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, I count 19, oh, maybe, I do count 20. Yeah. Okay, there are 20, we will have a roll call vote on this. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, yes, back over here.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jeffrey Dietz, Precinct 5. So the only thing that's binding about this is the $1.5 million that's going to come from taxpayers' money. But, so the print and red appears to be some sort of compromise because of the cost, but any money that may or may not be generated from these fees isn't going to help us buy another fire truck. It isn't going to help us pave our roads. It's not going to help us with better snow removal, which are the things that are really important, more important for this town. I think a compromise would be making the project smaller and cost less than $1.5 million. Thank you.
Just as a, Mr. Moderator, just to clarify, with the additional costs from Reading Pickleball Association and the Burbank funds and our existing capital budget for recreation, the intention is the borrowing would be $1 million or less.
Okay. Mr. Haley?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Because the Select Board was mentioned multiple times, I just wanted to go on the record and essentially say that unlike previous things that have happened in regard to fees on this, I will not stay out of, but whatever the rec committee and town staff comes up with, the fees that relate to this, I will be voting accordingly with whatever they recommend. Thanks.
Back over here.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Eileen Manning, Precinct 5. I'd also like to the folks who've worked on this amendment to try and get us somewhere that's not easy to find exactly a way to make this perfect. I'm also a board member for RPPA, and I, as a town meeting member, will support this amendment. I'm surprised by the number of people expressing sentiments doubting our town staff. I believe that they've heard the will of this body, which was very clear last Monday, and that they are working towards a way to make this happen. And I'm confident that they will do that.
Mr. Carnahan?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Joe Carnahan, Precinct 7. I'm no substitute for the CFO, and indeed she's already corrected me on one point so far this town meeting. But I did, in reference to the question about when the debt will be taken on, that is actually in the warrant report. There is an updated debt schedule. I believe the numbers in it are out of date because they reflect the original $1.9 million cost rather than the $1.5 million cost. But it does indicate that we would start taking on debt during fiscal year 26. So, thank you.
Yes, over here.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Dave Snow, Precinct 6. Regarding the red text, I am concerned about maintenance costs, and I'd like to ask the recreation team their thoughts about how to deal with ongoing maintenance, either if there's a shortfall of funds raised through this amendment, or beyond the period in which the total cost has been recovered. If we actually ever get there, then how would it be maintained at that point? And, you know, by way of context, several of our town meeting members here have made this pickleball issue analogous to basketball and tennis courts. I live near Barrow School, where there are 2 tennis courts and a basketball court that are in deplorable condition. The tennis courts are unplayable. I'd actually say it's a hazard to the children at the school. It's not being maintained at all. And so my concern is if our plan to maintain these pickleball courts in any way resembles the way that we're maintaining the tennis courts, then it would be hard for me to vote in favor of this. So please let me know your thoughts.
Ms. Wellman?
So, yeah, thank you. I'll answer, and then I'll hand it over to Ms. Wood. That's a great question. I appreciate the question. I will note that the tennis courts at the Barrow School are asphalt courts. This structure is a post-tension concrete structure that will be engineered for this site particularly. We don't anticipate it will be heaving. There won't be, we're told that it will last 25 to 50 years. So what it will need on regular maintenance, it will need a surface coating from time to time. It will need the lines painted from time to time. We'll have to, new nets, that's where I was going, we're going to nets, will need to be replaced from time to time. Town staff do that work, or if we need to resurface it, we would hire a vendor at some point to do that work. We currently charge for our programs in recreation. All of our programs have charges, and we run our programs, and we hire summer staff, and we hire part-time staff through our recreation revolving fund. That is a typical thing that we do, and the recreation department programs are entirely self-funding in Reading. And so we would gather funds from user fees, and then those would contribute to ongoing maintenance, like replacing new nets and so forth. They can also be a topic of a fundraising effort by RPPA or other, efforts that if they wish to, just like so many booster organizations do so much for all of our fields and our programs in town. Jenna, did you want to add to that?
Ms. Wood? No? Okay.
So I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understood that. If there's a shortfall, if the program fees do not cover the maintenance, how does it get funded?
If I don't anticipate that there will be a shortfall in our maintenance from user fees for just general updating through our revolving fund. We cash money back to the general fund every year from our revolving fund. But major capital investments like replacing tennis courts does not get paid for out of our revolving fund, to your point about the Barrow School. That comes out of the capital funding that we need to do from time to time.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Mulroy?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Sheila Mulroy. Move the question in regard to the amendment.
Okay, we have a motion to end debate on the proposed amendment. This requires a 2/3 vote. I'm not sure how to do this. Do we have all 4 counters? Oh, just the 2 of you? Okay, thank you very much. Point of order. Okay, if you are a town meeting member, you must be sitting within the rope to be counted. Okay, this requires a 2/3 vote to end debate on the proposed amendment. All those in favor of ending debate, please rise.
Hold on. If you're up in the bleachers, you will not be counted. If you're a town meeting member, you need to come down.
I just said that. Well,
$62.
62. $69, and those opposed to ending debate on the proposed amendment? Zero? 31.
4.
4. The vote being 131 in the affirmative, 4 in the negative, the question has been moved. We will now take a vote on the proposed amendment, which requires just a majority vote. All those in favor of the proposed amendment, please raise your hand. And those opposed? And the motion carries. Let me just make a note of that. Okay, we are now back to the main motion, and we'll start with Mr. Doxer.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mark Doxer from Precinct 1. I have a question on the wording, just for a moment. I know that on Monday night, and also even this evening, we talked about raising from borrowing $1 million, and other sources of fund would come up to the total of 1.5. I thought that typically in the past, when we did an article like this, we would talk about the total amount, but we wouldn't say borrow for the total amount. But that's the way this seems to be written. So I'm wondering if, what's the actual intent? I wonder if town council could confirm if it says borrow, does that mean thou shalt borrow? And what happens in terms of, I believe that there were transfers of other funds that were intended so that the borrowing would only be $1 million.
Town Council, Ms. Freed?
Thank you. So the article is drafted to give the town authorization to borrow up to $1.5 million. The town could borrow less than $1.5 million, but is authorized to borrow up to $1.5 million. Other funding sources that have been identified do not require town meeting to vote on them. So for example, I know that there was a donation. State law allows municipal officials to accept donations and to expend those funds for the purpose of the donation. So if a local pickleball group donates a set amount of funds for the purpose of constructing this court, those funds with the authorization of either the town manager or the select board could be used for that purpose without town's meeting votes. So they do not need to be in this motion for the funds to be used for that purpose.
So if I could just follow it up for a moment. So in practice, if the intent is to borrow $1 million and have those other sources of funds that were identified, who makes that happen? Is that the town CFO? Is it the select board? Is it town staff? Where is that decision made in terms of how to fund it?
The CFO is in charge of all the money, except what town meeting tells us to do. So procurement will be involved with this, with bidding it out and so forth. And like I said before, the intention is to borrow $1 million or less with a total project cost of $1.5 million.
Yeah, and just to kind of put the point on that one, so when it goes to the CFO in terms of making decisions, the intention that was brought forward, the intention that we've talked about is that the borrowing would be $1 million, and other sources might be used to get to the full 1.5.
The full project cost.
Okay.
That's correct. Thank you.
Ms. O'Neill.
Mary Ellen O'Neill, Precinct 6. I cannot support this project as presented for the following reasons. I'm absolutely not in favor of charging Reading residents to use pickleball courts paid for by the town. Yes, let's charge non-residents, special events, and individuals who charge to teach pickleball. And yes, it's imperative to develop a reservation system that has measures in place to assure fairness and accessibility to Reading residents and to prevent abuse of that system. The sources of funding to supplement the town's debt responsibility need to be clarified. Excuse me, there's so much talking back here. I have a hard time with ambient noise if I'm trying to concentrate and people are chatting, and
The acoustics are pretty poor in here, so if you can keep the chatting down.
Thank you. The sources of funding to supplement the town's debt responsibility need to be clarified. First, the amount to be provided by the Reading Pickleball Players Association is not a firm number. Some portion of that is in pledges, and pledges can be revoked. Also, an email to town meeting members on the Civic Plus platform indicated items the RPPA wishes to pay for, so it is not clear to me if this money, or some portion of it, is being given to the town for this project unencumbered. Second, town meeting should know the process by which it has been determined to recommend that money from the Burbank Ice Arena Trust Fund be used towards this project. The Ice Arena has a lease with the town through which it is supposed to provide revenue to the town on an annual basis. When this arrangement began, the initial revenues from the Burbank Ice Arena were used to pay off the town's contribution to the Burbank YMCA for its pool. After that, the money went into the town's operating fund, where it appeared for many years as a line item in the budget category, other sources of revenue, and it was used to support our annual operating budget. In very recent years, unbeknownst to many, these revenues were sent to a new off-books account called the Burbank Ice Arena Trust Fund that now totals $400,000. It is premature to decide to give half of this account to this particular project before any policy has been adopted by either the Select Board or the Finance Committee or some nonpartisan group regarding how that money can be used. So I thank you for listening. I hear the passion and the joy of the pickleball players and would support a redesigned project that addresses the concerns. Thank you.
Ms. Gregory?
Thank you. Taylor Gregory, Precinct 2. I believe town meeting as a body has discussed pickleball more than either Killam or Recal. At this point, I don't feel the town has demonstrated the needs for the courts. This feels like a first pass at an idea, and more information is required before passing this project through town meeting. I've heard a figure of hundreds of pickleball players in town, but that could be anywhere from 101 to 999 people. I would like to see an actual estimate of pickleball players in town. I feel the RPPA and the town can work together on a survey to get better demographic information that can better support the need for the courts. I used to work in building design, and one of the first things I would do is when I looked at a space is to determine how many people would be in the space to make sure there are enough exits and toilets for the number of people. I don't understand how we didn't start with this step in determining the number of pickleball players intended for these courts. Are we sure that 6 isn't too many or that it's not enough? I would like to see more information about the potential for usage fees and the reservation system as a whole. Can the town require that reservations show 4 individuals playing pickleball on a single reservation? Can the town track and moderate how often players can make reservations, but also how many total times an individual player can play in a week to ensure others will have the opportunity to play? This body gives a lot of consideration and scrutiny to other major projects, but why is this project not getting that same scrutiny? Pickleball courts are a want, not a need, whereas Killam and Recal are needs. Pickleball is not on a schedule like Killam and Recal, and Recal would provide a greater benefit to the broader audience, especially among those 60 plus. I'm not saying no to pickleball, I'm saying not right now. I want to see the results of the special election next week. We are asking the community to take on 2 major projects, and residents are already worried about the potential impact of Killam and Recal on their households. Pickleball doesn't have to happen right now, it can wait. I would ask that we wait to discuss this until November town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Ms. Bowman?
Thank you. Just in response to that, Ms. Wood's going to present some data. We appreciate the questions. This project was identified during the feasibility study stage of the Recal project. And it was the same architecture firm and the same civil engineering or landscape design firm, Activitas, that worked on both projects and have done a tremendous amount of work on all of that. And we have a tremendous amount of data to back up all of these numbers and the court design and so forth. I'm going to let Jenna speak to that more specifically, but I wanted to be very clear. This is not a last-minute project. This is not an unstudied thing. This has been done with rigor and professionalism by all of our consultants and by town staff. Jenna.
Ms. Wood?
Hello. So it was funny, I was telling Jane where this all began when she was supposed to be presenting this presentation. She's like, when did this all begin? I go, well, actually, I was the program coordinator here, and Peter Sullivan, we called him Pickleball Pete, walked in and was like, oh, we need pickleball in this community. And I was like, I don't even know what pickleball is. So I went in, I talked to John Feudo, who's still really well known in town. He works over at the Y. And I said, can we do this? Like, I don't know anything about pickleball, but I'd love to try it. So, yeah, that was in 2012. And here we are, 13 years later. I'm still here, and pickleball is growing more than ever. And I can certainly attest to the several times I've been in front of the select board, how many times that this has been discussed in recreation committees, trying to find locations for these players. They're on not even dedicated pickleball courts right now. They're shared predominantly, yes, the pickleballers are there, but they're shared courts. They're not dedicated to pickleball. They're in a neighborhood where we get complaints from the neighbors, and it's very disturbing for them. So this is the right time for this project came together at the right time for us to bring it forward. We're obligated to bring projects forward that have this defined need, and I thought on Monday we didn't really lean into all the recreation things that we do with pickleball that we can't do right now. So it's a really growing program within the recreation division. So we do have over approximately 400 pickleball players. I think on Monday it was like 378, but a couple town meeting members got up and said, well, I'm probably not in that number because I go down on the court and I play with my child on X day and X time. So there's certainly players that aren't documented that probably still come and use these courts that are residents. And in recreation, we have 32 indoor and outdoor programs offered in a calendar year. We could also do more, but again, space is limited indoors, and then how many players you can have indoors in a gym is also very limiting. We don't have enough space to meet any type of demand for any type of tournaments, any RPPA tournaments that they want to run or anyone else would want to run, they'd have to be in the field house. There's a lack of parking, lack of courts, neighborhood congestion over there. We have wait lists. We have a pickleball program starting at Memorial Park on Sunday, and we already have a wait list for that. So what we have is limiting how many participants we have. We can't service them, and new courts will allow for these programs and town organized leagues and all ages to learn the sport and even grow the sport more than we do now. So there'll be dedicated courts will open up that opportunity for kids to learn and for there to be open play opportunities. So I just thought that from a recreation standpoint, we thought that that might be really important to highlight, that this has been a defined need for so long, and we were happy to get those ARPA funds for the design. And yeah, it's been a pretty quick turnaround, but it's been something that's been discussed for so long, and this is the right location, and it would be a perfect marriage with everything that already exists and everything that hopefully does exist there in the future.
Mr. Sasso.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Sasso, Precinct 2. So just a few questions first. So, sorry. I'm just curious. I know we talked a little bit about this on Monday, but I'm not sure I got a clear answer. So if ReCal does not pass the voters, are there any additional costs that would have to be borne to make this project happen? Meaning, road improvements or pulling utilities in that were already planned to be brought in under ReCal?
No.
No.
This project stands on its own 2 feet.
Completely separate, okay. And then on the other side, if ReCal does actually pass, are there opportunities to reduce the cost of this project by, I think you mentioned something about the parking lot or maybe some other things where maybe you could be awarding the contract to reduce some of the overhead, or I'm just curious, have you thought about that? Is that something that's possible?
We have thought about that, and because we have the same architect working on both projects and the same civil engineering firm working on both projects, we can look for those economies of scale. The ReCal project will be done by a general contractor. So some of the work we think in the site will be able to, on-site stormwater detention, for instance, maybe something where we can see an economy of scale. Instead of just a gravel parking lot, we would pave it because the whole ReCal parking lot would be paved. So some of those pieces. We would see there's sidewalk plans for the pickleball portion, but then that would continue on to the ReCal. So, that would probably be one contractor that would do all of that work. Depending on when it's constructed, right? Because if pickleball goes first, it's going to be done first. It's totally encapsulated in the 1.5.
Okay, thank you. I know town accountant's not here tonight, but I think Mr. Carnahan mentioned this. So the debt that's planned for this is already programmed into the in-levy debt. So it's already under the planned and programmed 5% value for capital and debt. So we're not talking about, this is not an excluded debt project. This is something that you're pulling within the current budget.
That's correct.
Starting in I think he's right, FY 26, I
That's
think he
correct,
said. So-
FY 26.
Okay, I just want to make sure that people understood that. And then just before, there was one other thing I was going to mention. Is this a need? I mean, it is actually a need. We, as part of ReCal, so I was a member of the ReCal committee as well, for full disclosure. We identified 8 specific needs that the senior community was looking for, and one of them was actually outdoor activity. And in some respects, in retrospect, people have asked, well, why did this get separated from ReCal? And I think part of the reason, well, first of all, was because it could go anywhere. It didn't necessarily have to be at the same site. Now, it's ended up being there, but that's one thing. And it's also because, up to the obvious point, that we don't know which project's going to go where and what. And so, but I do want to make it clear, it was clearly one of the identified needs for the community. The other thing, so I was also involved in the 2005 master plan development, and that's where the whole the requirement to do a Birch Meadow master plan came. And while pickleball wasn't necessarily on that list at the time, it actually evolved into the Birch Meadow master plan, and so that actually got taken out. So in some respects, the town kind of pulled that away from the plan, and so here we are kind of left with this project. I guess the short story is, I certainly believe this project is a need. The community has put forth some potential support in terms of financial. The only thing I could remember in the last 20 some odd years where the community donated into something that continued to fund was the Memorial Day flowers for the veterans. If there are other projects where we got donations to support a capital plan, I'd love to hear it. I can't remember. So I do think that's an important thing that this group and the community is actually saying we need this and are willing to put some money into it. And in the end, the actual debt to under $1 million or $1 million, give or take, which is already in the budget. As much as I am also concerned about future funding and debt, I think this is an important project, and I'd like to see it supported. Thank you very much.
And Mr. Sasso, just to answer one of your questions, I was reminded that there's also an electrical transformer on the site that if both projects were to pass, that electrical transformer would be a cost savings as well, because you would only need one.
Ms. Binder.
Thank you, Angela Binda, Precinct 5. We'll be borrowing $1 million, but it could be up to $1.5 million. $100,000 from the recreation budget that would normally go to park, playground, and court repairs and upkeep. So that is money that's not going into that, but going into this. And $200,000 from the Burbank Fund. And I'd like to, Ms. O'Neill brought it up, I think Ms. Alvarado brought it up before, and how that money, where that money comes from and where it goes to. It is not a donation. It's been called a donation. It is rent in lieu of payment, rent in lieu of taxes. And it used to go into operating, and it hasn't for a while. And I have questions about how it is determined how that money gets allocated, because that money could get allocated in times of financial troubles. It could go to a new senior center, or if we don't get it, to repair, to do some things for the existing senior center. It could go into planting new trees or repairing roads. But it's not. It has been earmarked to this. And I think I know why it is. And I know that the Burbank Ice Arena Authority Board feels that they should determine how that money is spent. And I have a real problem with the Burbank Ice Arena Authority determining where that money is being spent. Now, we will vote for it, but it is coming from the Burbank Ice Arena Authority. They've gone to the Recreation Committee to say how they want the money spent. It seems improper to me that a land leasee would be directing the town how they want to, how they should be spending the money. And I know that it has been talked about, it is the desire of the Burbank Ice Arena Authority to spend $200,000 on pickleball and $200,000 on the Unified Sports Program. And I know this because I had a conversation with a board member last August about where Burbank wants to spend this money. It seems improper to me that the board having such influence on how the town spends money, it leads me to question other things about that. So it's not just money for recreation. In times like where we are right now, it could be used for other things. It was mentioned on Monday that the RPPA has gotten a runaround regarding these courts. And as a longtime Recreation Committee observer, member, and vice chair, and a member of SWEC, I know that that is the furthest thing from the truth. The Reading Times-Chronicle, a little bit ago, RPA president stated the town is really moving this project in an extremely aggressive time frame and that we're trying to accomplish. So even RPPA acknowledges that this has been moving along in an extremely aggressive time frame. The architect stated that they normally build 4 to 6 courts, not 7 lighted courts. Ms. Wellman stated that this would make Reading a premier location, and a select board member stated this is not the type of facility that is being built in the Northeast, but what's being built in the South. I'm voting no on this proposal. I do think it's rushed. I'm asking the town to return at a later date with a more appropriate, less costly plan, which includes a mechanism for equal access for all residents. I hope that it comes back. Nobody is against pickleball. I think that this is a plan that is too costly. I've received too many, I've heard from too many people who said that this is not the time to be spending $1.5 million. And I hope that the town comes back in the fall with a less costly, more reasonable plan in keeping with what other towns are being built. Thank you.
Mr. Bonazzoli?
Mr. Moderator, if I
Oh,
can
excuse me.
respond to that, please?
Okay,
Thank
Ms.
you
Ms.
very
Wellman.
much. Thank you. Thank you for the questions and the comments. I think that the Burbank Arena has been a great partner with the town for so many things. But the usage of these funds has not come from the Burbank Arena Board or any member, anyone associated with the Burbank Arena. The idea was raised during a select board meeting at a time when we started to discuss all of the various trust funds and gift funds and a variety of funds that we have in town. And it was during that meeting that a select board member asked about those funds, and then town staff looked into it. And because there isn't a requirement to expend it in one way or another, we said this seems like an appropriate use for these funds because it is adjacent to the Burbank Arena, because it is an adaptive and accessible sport. And you are correct. The Burbank Arena Board has made it clear to us and also to this body through an instructional motion that they would like to see that their funds be used in the future for accessible sports like the unified sports teams and perhaps the therapeutic rec program. So these are conversations that we have all the time. But I want to be very, very clear. The Burbank Authority, the Arena Board rather, did not direct town staff, did not direct anybody to use these funds. This is initiative coming through a public process that was identified, and town staff did look into the availability of those funds for this purpose. So I just want to clear, because
I have text messages and conversations from last August with a board member telling me very specifically that he was talking to town staff about wanting the funds to go to pickleball, $200,000 and $200,000 to unified sports. So that is what I was told by a board member. And so maybe the board member had a conversation with select board members. I'm not sure, but I was told last August that the board wanted $200,000 to go to pickleball and $200,000 to go to unified sports.
My only understanding from the Burbank Arena Board is that they have expressed an interest in the past for the unified sports program and for therapeutic rec, that sort of stuff. So, certainly for that. But I did not have any conversation with anybody about using it for pickleball. So just so that
But it
that's
could have
clear. I wanted to be
happened.
clear. You also mentioned that I said that this would be a premier league. That was when we were talking about maybe 8 courts here, and you're right.
No, it was 7 when it was presented.
When our architect talked about building 4 to 6 courts, that's correct. We have continued to revise this project down, and so we are looking to build 6 courts. Thank you.
Mr. Bonazzoli?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. James Bonazzoli, Precinct 6. Move the question on the main motion.
Okay, we have a motion to end debate on the main motion. This requires a 2/3 vote. So all those in favor of ending debate, please rise. Pardon me? 45.
53.
53. And those opposed to ending debate? Twenty-five.
13.
13. The vote being 98 in the affirmative, 38 in the negative, the question has been moved, and we will proceed to a vote. Now, roll call votes are a little time-consuming, so please bear with us as we get our notes here ready. Okay, I'm going to read the names, and I'll be doing it by precinct, beginning with precinct 1, and then there'll be alphabetical order. I will take a quick pause after each precinct, just so we can change the page here. Okay, beginning with precinct 1, Grace Arena. Yes. John Arena. Antonio Afiero. Rebecca Bailey. No. Okay. Roy Benjamin. Roy Benjamin? No. Heather Bramati. Oh, yes? Is that a yes? Yes, okay. Salvatore Bramati? Okay. Philip Clark? No. Emily DeRee? Yes. Linda Snow Doxer? Mark Doxer? Nancy Doctor? W. Megan Fidler-Carey? Yes. Andrew Fortino? Andrew Fortino? No. Okay. Diana Halsey? Oh, that's right. Okay. Deborah Hattery? Yes. Sarah Littlefield? Yes. Sheila Mulroy? Yes. Carla Nazaro? Yes. Paula Perry? David Panett? David Panett? No. Karen Panett? Mark Zarro? Yes. Okay, anybody else in precinct 1 that we missed? No. Okay, precinct 2. Howard Cohen? No. Margaret Connors? No. David Craven? Susan Craven? Vanessa Curry? Vanessa Curry? Anthony DeRezzo? Christine Ford? Christine Ford? David Gentile? Andrew Gregory? Taylor Gregory? Denise Iozzo? No. Karen Janowski? Carolyn Johnson? Kenneth Johnson? Ann Klein? Nicole Lamson? Okay, Nicole Lamson again, I'm sorry. Yes? Okay. Jessica Noble Gibbs? Simone Payment? John Sasso? Emily Sisson? Michael Storty? Michael Storty? No. Nancy Todrus? Mark Ventura? Mark Ventura? Laura Wilson? Okay. That wraps up precinct 2. Did we forget anybody? Okay. Precinct 3. Okay. Aditya Bengali? What was that? No. Okay, thank you. Eric Bergstrom? John Breslin? John Breslin? Oh, not here, okay. Douglas Bruce? Sheila Bruce? Charles Burke? Charles Burke? Yes, okay. Ellen Childress? No? Okay. Jason Clark? Philip Dardino? Yes, okay. Daniel Dewar? Richard Eagleston? Richard Eagleston? Laura Fusco? Mark Giardina? Tara Giardina? Kathleen Harrington? Maureen Hurley? Yes, okay. Amy James? Ronald Powell? Yes, okay. Amy Sane? Joseph Serafine? Michael Shemansky? Was that a yes? Yes. Yes, okay. Melissa Talal. Frank Tussarat, Tussaran, okay. Mary Tuscany? Not here, okay. All right, that is the end of 3. Precinct 4. Marlena Beta. Sarah Brucolacchio? Yes. Judith Coltman? Not here, I think. Michael Coltman? Not here, yeah. Patrick Drummy? Was there an answer on Patrick Drummy? Yes. Oh, yes, okay, thank you. Christopher Feudo? No. Kerry Fox? No. Eric Gaffin? Yes. Erin Gaffin? Yes. Thomas Grant? Yes. Dana Garino? Yes. Jennifer Cummings Hillary? Not here. Cassandra Holmes? No. Jeffrey Jadul? Yes. Emily James? Yes. John Mascarielli? Mary Ann McLaughlin Downing? Yes. Lindsay Monahan? Yes. Laura Noonan? Yes. Mary Christine Paxton? Yes. Annika Scanlon? Elizabeth Sherland? Karen Whitelam? No. Thomas Wise? Yes. Okay, that's the end of Precinct 4. Precinct 5. Vanessa Alvarado? No. Carlo Bacci?
Big yes.
Jonathan Barnes? Jared Bellevaux? Angela Binda? No. Adam Denhard? Jeffrey Dietz? No. Crystal Hodson? No. Helena Johnson? No. Sharella Lestrade? Was that a no? No, okay, yeah. Christine Lusk? Yes. Eileen Manning? Yes. Philip Pacino? No. Mary Parr? Karen Rose Gillis? Yes. Edward Ross? Yes. Julie Ross? No. Justin Scott?
What was that? Thank you.
Rick Schaefer? Okay. John Sullivan? Yes. John B. Sullivan? David Talbot? Yes. Julie Talbot? Neil Taylor? Nancy Zimlak? Okay, that end of 5. Precinct 6. Linda Ananian? Jesse Arnold? Barry Berman? Barry Berman? No. James Monazzoli? Stephen Cool? No. Okay. Robert Coulter? John Federico? Gabriella Graceffa? Brendan Gray? Ann Gelati? Shirley Gia? Daniel Malone? Lindsay McCarthy? James McIntosh? Cheryl Machella? Etane O'Day? John O'Neill? Mary Ellen O'Neill? Karen Perry? Oh, Carrie, I'm sorry, Carrie Perry. What was that? Yes, okay. Thomas Perry? Ann Rand? David Rocci? David Snow? Okay, I've been asked to do Thomas Perry again. Thomas Perry? Yes, okay. Then Ann Rand was next? No, okay. David Rachi? Oh, you got everybody, okay. Okay, Mary Ann Tompkins. All right, that's the end of Precinct 6. Precinct 7, Carl Anderson. Joy Bolio? No? Okay. Joseph Carnahan?
Yes.
Jeffrey Coram? No. Mark Delaney?
Yes.
Charles Donnelly Moran?
Yes.
Kerry Dunnell? Travis Estes? No. Pamela Goodale? Ryan Johnstone? Timothy Kirwan? Michael Lacey? Mark Logston? Hillary Mative? Jacqueline McCarthy? Gina McCormick? Gennady Pilyavsky? Jana Stafford? Jeffrey Struble? John Brendan Sullivan? Erin Tierney? Amy Ward? Carolyn Whiting? Corin Wolf? All right, that's the end of Precinct 7. On to Precinct 8. Richard Abadi? Elizabeth Blumen? Sean Brandt? Christopher Calabrese? Kendra Cooper? No. Okay. Christopher Costa? Pamela Daskalakis? Okay. Joshua Goldlust? Joseph Harrington? Margaret Harrington? Laurie Hayes? Karen Herrick? Stephen Herrick? Oh, Karen Herrick, was it a no? Yeah, that was a no. Okay, then Stephen Herrick was a no. Eileen Laterio? Joseph McDonough? Emily McNaughton? Todd Merkel? Martha Moore? Casey Moulton? Melissa Murphy? Thomas O'Connor? Kevin Sexton? Vanessa Silva? Alicia Williams? All right, has anybody been missed? Okay. Now we have to tally the vote. The vote being 102 in the affirmative, 102 in the affirmative, 43 in the negative, the motion carries. We now move to Article 15, and who's going to be presenting? Mr. Cole? Mr. Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Chris
Could we quiet down? We're moving on with other business. Okay, Mr. Cole?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Chris Cole, DPW Director. So, as
Alan, can we take a break? Let them leave.
That's a good point. I'm going to wait just a minute until people leave. It's very hard to hear.
They're going to the bar right now.
Okay, Mr. Cole, continue. I'm sorry about that.
thank you, Mr. Moderator. So, as many of you know, the town has initiated.
You might want to move the microphone a little closer to you.
That better?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll lean in a little bit. Okay, so as many of you know, the town has initiated a townwide lead service replacement program where approximately 5% of town-owned and 11% of private services are either lead, galvanized iron, or some unknown service material. Research has shown that these galvanized iron water services, especially when you have any type of lead piping or lead material, such as the lead gooseneck prior to the galvanized, can have the same effect as lead, which is why galvanized water services are also recommended for replacement as well as all lead services. So back starting in 2019, 2020, somewhere in there, town meeting authorized $1.5 million for phase 1 of the lead removal program on the loan from MWRA. And in 2004, the town completed phase 1 of its lead removal program. To date, the town has removed approximately 206 lead or galvanized water services with approximately about 250 or so remaining. The town seeks to continue this program with phase 2, which will remove an additional 100 services for $1.5 million. So last year, the MWRA approved an additional $100 million in a 10-year no-interest loan, assistance to communities to fully replace all of these lead services. And last year, there is now also a 25% grant component for communities that fully fund the removal of lead services on private property. So Reading has applied for this grant, and if we receive it, would reduce the loan amount by $375,000.
You all set?
Yeah.
Okay. FinCom report, Mr. Zarro?
Mark Zarro, Finance Committee in Precinct 1. On March 19th, the Finance Committee voted 9-0 to recommend this to this article. Thanks.
Mr. Arena.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Arena, Precinct 1. A couple of questions. The average cost of replacing a service is apparently $15K. Is that true?
There are other costs associated in there. I unfortunately didn't put these slides together. I mean, I don't know. It's obviously less than that.
But the simple math, 1.5 million, 100 units, 15K, that's the going number? And that's DPW doing the work, is that correct? Or is
No.
it a private contractor?
No, it's a private contractor. We outsource it.
Is DPW capable of doing it, or no, it's a specialty of some sort?
We are, but just of the quantity of them, we're already doing other water services in town and other work that we have to do, so we outsource.
The 100 million 10-year no-interest loan, what would be, in order to apply for that, I presume it's not guaranteed. It may already be absorbed by other towns, for example. That's a total sum of money for the entire state, correct?
Not.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but okay.
I'm not really sure.
What's required for us to apply for some of that grant?
Unfortunately, I don't have that information.
The last question, I suppose then the last bullet, which says is a 25% grant.
Yep.
If you fully fund it, you wouldn't, I presume you'd have to fully complete the work within the year in order to have some of that loan turned into a grant. Is that your understanding? In other words, if we lean into this and try to do it all, you'd have to do it all to get assurances of the 25% grant.
Again, I'm not completely certain. I mean, the town engineer, when he was talking to me about it this afternoon, told me that just any community that already replaces these lead services is eligible for this grant.
There's a chicken and an egg problem. If you apply for the money, you don't get 24% turned into a grant, I guess, until you get the full replacement, which would seem to say you got to get the entire job done. Anyway, this motion seeks only the $1.5 million authorization, correct? All right, thank you.
Mr. Sasso. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you over
Thank you,
there.
Mr. Moderator. John Sasso, Precinct 2. You say on here that there are approximately 250 remaining services that still have this issue. Have those those residents' properties been notified that this still exists?
Yes, letters were sent out back last November, I believe, to any property that had either lead galvanized or the unknown service that we weren't sure of the material.
Okay. So is the only way for them to get their service upgraded through this program, or are they able to do it? Because I know, like, for example, my parents lived in Arlington, they had to get theirs redone, and they actually did it themselves and had to end up paying at the time for that. Is that something that's also an option for residents?
I mean, anyone can get their water service replaced, you know, but they're paying for it.
Okay.
But this is through the.
But the intent of this in the end, obviously, is to try to get all of these done. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Mr. Herrick.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Steve Herrick, Precinct 8. I'm just curious, of the 250 units, how is it prioritized, the 100 that you're replacing service on? I'm just curious.
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. Okay. The payment we'd be making on this loan, I assume that this is going to be absorbed via our water rates? Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, I would assume so, yeah.
Okay. With that response, I'm not sure you're going to have an answer to my next question. Do we have any idea what the impact on the water rates are? And is it possible that this loan is taking the place? We said we completed phase 1 of the lead removal. Do we already have a loan built into our water rates covering lead removal? And is this going to have a substantive impact that anybody knows how to measure at this point in time?
Mr. Cornelis.
Hi, thanks for the question. And we can get you those answers. The town engineer is not here tonight. However, you know, water rates is under the jurisdiction of the select board. We'll have hearings next month on that, as I mentioned during the budget discussion, in terms of the rates. So that, you know, there's a lot of factors that go into that. I don't want to go into all of that here tonight, but more to come on that soon.
And I might have missed it, but it might have been on the previous slide, but I'm sorry, it's on this slide, a 10-year no interest loan. So that, quick math, that's what, $10 million a year that needs to be paid off, which, oh, I'm sorry. Do we know, so we know approximately what the payment per year will be on this? What is the, when this loan goes through, assuming we get the grant, it goes down to $1,125,000, right? And that grant will be, that interest loan will be paid off over 10 years. So we're talking about roughly $112,500 per year, roughly, is what we're talking about. Does that make sense?
I would have to do the math. It sounds in the ballpark to me, though. So.
Okay. All right. But we haven't really done a study yet, but this will be absorbed through the water rates, and which will be set, which hasn't been done yet, was not part of our budget process, dealt with separately by the select board. Okay. Right. All right. I understand. Thank you.
Mr. Talbot.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Dave Talbot, Precinct 5. How many of the 250 are you?
Excuse me, can't hear you.
How many of the 250 is unknown?
I don't have that information with me tonight, but any of the unknown services, they're just from, some of these services are so old, you know, the records just don't show what the material is on them. But if anyone did get a letter saying they had an unknown type service, you know, just contact the town and we will come out and take a
Again,
look.
could I ask you to speak a little bit closer to the microphone?
We'll come out and identify the service, you know, take a look at what the water service type is.
Okay. The reason I ask is that we have an old house, and it was actually done by the DPW, thank you very much, a few years ago, and but we did get the notice saying either it needs to be done or we don't know. So I just wonder and I'm sorry that we didn't call you, or had I known, I would have called. But I just wonder, what happens if you turn out not to need this because 100 of them have been done? Say, what happens?
Well, depending upon whether the town replaced from the stop at the edge of your property line to the house or all the way out to the main, there could still be a section in that service that might fall into this.
Okay, a chunk of the sidewalk was dug up, so whatever that means, I think it's at the street. Does that mean this?
So they may have just replaced from the main up to that stop, possibly. And the rest of the service might still need replacing, possibly.
So I guess the question I'm trying to ask is, this is coincidentally the same as pickleball, so not to belabor the point, but just to, do you need this much money if there might be a significant amount that it turns out that they were done already? And if you don't turn out to need it, what happens to all the money that you've borrowed? Or do you not borrow all of that because you're going to do some kind of checking, like go out to the 100 and just take a look in the basement and see if it was done, and then you'll know, oh, we only need 750 or whatever, or $1 million instead of $1.5 million. Would you do that before you go borrow the full amount?
Mr. Cornelis.
Yeah, I would have to check with the CFO regarding the borrowing, but we would look into it thoroughly before we went to borrowing, just to make sure.
Okay.
So that situation doesn't happen.
Okay, I will make the phone call so that it goes down to 249 at least, and maybe you can knock this down to 1.48 million, or maybe 1.495, because I think it was only going to be like $2,000 or something to get it done if a plumber had done it, because it was an easy short run. I made that number up, but it wasn't anywhere near 15 grand. But I remember getting a quote and it was pretty reasonable. So anyway, anything you can do to check and then borrow less, I think would be appreciated by this body.
This is just the maximum. This is just the maximum that we can.
All right, thank you.
Further discussion? None appearing. This requires a 2/3 vote. So all those in favor, please rise.
Sixty-eight.
68. 74. And those opposed? Zero?
Zero.
Zero. The vote being 142 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion carries. Move on to Article 16. Mr. McNichol.
Yeah, sure, I'll start.
Okay, yeah. Are you speaking? Go ahead.
Yes, I'm going to
Yes.
go ahead. So I'm Heather Klisch. I'm the current chair of the Planning and Development Commission. Article 16 is a bylaw update that is for the purpose, really, of keeping property owners eligible for the National Flood Insurance Program. How do I advance slides? Oh, okay. So very briefly, it's late, I'm going to go over how this bylaw plays in with the whole system for National Flood Insurance Program. There are 3 entities involved here, really. One is FEMA. What FEMA does is it publishes and updates flood insurance rate maps. It establishes flood zone boundaries for the entire country, including Reading, and it runs the National Flood Insurance Program. All right, another entity is the Massachusetts, the State Flood Hazard Mitigation Program. They do, I'm having a hard time with this, sorry. What they do is they establish a model bylaw for all communities in Massachusetts to follow, and then they review the local bylaw for compliance with what what their requirements and the FEMA requirements are. And so here is the town of Reading's role. What we do is what we're going to do tonight. What we do is we maintain a local bylaw that's consistent with the state and federal requirements. And all of that is what makes homeowners and the town eligible for the National Flood Insurance Program. All right, next slide. So why are we doing this tonight? FEMA recently, in January, updated, they do this every 10, 15, I don't know, sometimes 20 years, but they just updated in January all of the flood insurance rate maps. Those are preliminary maps. They're going to be finalized in July. All right, in the meantime, the state updated its model bylaw. We have a newer model bylaw that we must now comply with. And that's what we're doing tonight. The bylaw you have in front of you makes updates and amendments to be consistent with what the state is requiring and to make reference to the correct map numbers and names. All right, so let me see. Well, again, this is just kind of a summary of what we're doing tonight is we are updating the bylaw for the floodplain overlay district to make sure that it meets state and federal requirements. And when we do that, homeowners, property owners in town will be eligible and maintain their eligibility for the National Flood Insurance Program. We have to do this by the time those flood insurance maps are finalized in July, which is why we're bringing it to spring town meeting. Okay, so what is in, you have the updated bylaw in your packet. I'm just going to really summarize what all of those edits are. Andrew is here, he can help answer questions when we get to that point. There are several new definitions that are all kind of required. We brought those all into compliance. There's a procedure laid out for how to get a variance from the bylaw. It's a very rigorous process. One of the things that we did is we had to appoint and name a floodplain administrator, and for Reading, that will be the building commissioner. It sets out a variety of clarified descriptions for the types of permits that are required if you're going to do certain work in the floodplain zone, and it makes those references to those correct and updated maps. One thing that's important to note in this bylaw is there is overall absolutely no change to the uses that are allowed by right, by special permit, or prohibited. So there are no changes in the uses. There are some clarifications, and that's where in red you see some extra content, some new content. One is that it lays out a review process for drainage design, for stormwater runoff design. We see this typically, for instance, in subdivision plans as well. It's very consistent with the type of thing that we review. There's also, it's kind of an oddball thing for Reading, but it is required. There's a new clarification of how, if you were going to have an RV on your property, must be stored if it's going to be there for over a certain number of days. One thing that's really important for people to understand, we got a few questions about this. This has no impact on, and it does not change the wetlands bylaw at all. You'll see some overlap in the areas because wetlands are wet and floods go oftentimes where it's wet, but that it doesn't impact or change the wetlands bylaw at all. This is a slide with a lot of words, and I'm not going to read all of the words. Next, what I'm going to do, what we'll do here is explain what some of the zones are. The next two slides are going to be maps. We really aren't equipped to go into the maps tonight. Andrew here, our wonderful town planner, has been meeting one-on-one with many property owners to look at those preliminary maps and help them to understand. So this is just about the bylaw, but what we will see is in Reading, we have really two primary flood zones. One, and neither of these are intuitively called, but nonetheless, one is Zone X, and that is the area that is subject to maybe a 500-year flood, the type of flood that models might show might happen once every 500 years. Sometimes they happen more, but that's the 500-year flood zone. We also have Zone A, which is the 100-year flood zone. The main changes in the maps and that are reflected in the bylaws is that Reading has lost a lot of Zone X, the 500-year zone, and there's been some conversion, you'll see this in the next slides, from Zone X, the 500-year zone, to Zone A, the 100-year. What it means is more of Reading is now, FEMA has determined, might be subject to a 100-year flood than a 500-year flood. And there are lots of boundary changes. I'm not going to read the whole list of the typical, or the sample of the type of boundary changes that we've seen. You see them all there. That's just kind of a sampling. And we'll show this number again, this email address again, but if any of you or people in your precincts have questions about the details of these maps, you can email that planning email and you'll get Andrew and Olivia, and they've really been doing a wonderful job helping people out. Okay. We're going to go through these quickly. We're not going to dwell on maps, but everybody wants to see it, right? So in the most recent map, the 2010 map, the orange area is this Zone X, that 500-year flood. The blue area is Zone A, the 100-year flood. Again, these boundaries are set by FEMA. We in town have no right or even responsibility to be setting these. All right, what you're going to see here, at the next one, you'll see that a lot of that orange goes away and it turns to blue. A lot of our areas are now, a lot of our flood areas are now 100-year flood zones. What you saw, if you looked at the bylaw, you also saw lots of other letters referring to zones AE, AH, AO, others. We don't have all of those in Reading, but in our bylaw, we have to make reference to all of those zones because that's what meets the FEMA and state requirements. So we have to dot our I's, cross our T's, and name all those zones, even though we don't have them all in Reading. All right, we're at the summary. Isn't that great? So again, to summarize, what we're doing here is absolutely necessary to do by July 8th to allow private property owners and the town to maintain eligibility for the National Flood Insurance Program. In the bylaw, there are no new allowed or restricted uses. The uses that are allowed in the flood zone are not changing. The changes that you do see in the bylaw do meet the state and federal requirements, and I will say that as discussion ensues, I would really caution town meeting to refrain from making deeply substantive requirements. In the past several weeks and months, Andrew's been in contact with, you're okay if I just call you Andrew, right? Andrew's been in contact with the state flood program, even when CPDC kind of wanted to make some changes for things that we didn't think made sense. We were told, yes, you can do some things, and no, you can't do things there. No, you can't do other things. So what you see in the bylaw has also been vetted with the state already. I will close by making our report, I need to remember the date, that on April 14th, CPDC voted 4-0. There was one person who wasn't voting to recommend this floodplain overlay district bylaw update for approval by town meeting. And I think that's it. Yes, one person was absent that day. And so thank you. That's the summary of what you're looking at here, and we're happy to take questions.
Is there further discussion? Yes, Mr. DeRizzo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tony DeRizzo, Precinct 2. Simple question. You refer to flood insurance rate maps dated July 8th, 2025. Is there an expected floodplain insurance coming up, or is that date in the past and incorrect?
That's the date that those floodplain maps will be final, and so that's the date that we're referencing.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion?
Yeah,
Nancy Doctor, Precinct 1. Just a question.
sorry.
So with the change from the 500 to 100, are homeowners responsible for kind of recognizing if there's a change and their property was included in that? That's on the homeowner to be aware of that?
Yes, and the town helped out a bit by sending a mailing when we did have a public hearing around this, but by sending notice to the people that were in the new floodplain area, right? You should talk.
Sorry, we did a note, Andrew McNichol, Community Development Director. We did a notice to those within the existing floodplain boundary and a buffer from that boundary as well to try to accommodate any potential expansions in the floodplain.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. You answered it.
Further discussion? This requires a 2/3 vote. So all those in favor, please rise.
$65.
65? And how many did you say, Mr. Phil? 59. And those opposed? Zero? Zero. The vote being 124 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion carries. Article 17, Mr. Cornelis.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So Article 17 deals with the discontinuation of a drainage easement. The town currently has title and interest to a drainage easement over the property on Annette Lane. The property is under development, and the owner had requested a portion of the easement be abandoned as it burdens the property. The existing easement was established for the potential extension of Colbert Road, which was never built. Since the road was never constructed, the town sees no reason to utilize the easement in the future. There's no additional utilities planned for this easement as well. And then by eliminating the easement, the owner can then construct a building further away from the wetland near the site, which would have a benefit for the town. So there's a town benefit to this as well. The owner has also agreed to pay for the town's legal fees and design fees associated with this effort. So if this is approved tonight by town meeting, the town would release all rights, title, and interest to a portion of the easement depicted on, I believe, the next slide, Jackie, on this slide. And you can see the area in green, the box is actually the property. The area in green in the middle is the easement that would be discontinued. So fairly simple discontinuation of an easement. And the select board had voted at their last meeting to surplus the easement as well.
Further discussion? Yes.
I'm Martha Moore, Precinct 8. I'm also the Vice Chair of the Conservation Commission. The project on Annette Lane already came before the Conservation Commission for approval. The plot plan shown up on the screen does not show the wetland lines on the property or the 35-foot no structure zones. I did send it, excuse me, I did send an email. Yes, this is the actual plan which shows where the wetland lines are, and there is a wetland line at the bottom of the screen, and there's also a wetland that wraps around in a horseshoe shape all the way around the top, and the drainage easement is shown in a dotted line slightly below where the cursor is now. And so The argument for removing the drainage easement says that it would allow the builder to move the house further from the wetland, but in fact, it just moves it closer to the wetland on the northern side of the property. The town owns the property just to the north of this property, and it's off the top of this screen, and in your warrant, it was to the right. Moving the house further north would impact this small piece of open space and reduce the protection provided for wildlife habitat and flood control. The builder has already regraded the site to remove the top of the hill, which is shown in those concentric circles in the middle, and has cleared a significant number of trees marked with red X's on this attached map. Moving the house further north would require additional tree removal and regrading. While the primary purpose of the drainage easement is to allow access and prohibit structures, it also offers secondary protection for the habitat and wetland to the north of this property by effectively extending the Reading Conservation Commission's no structure zone. I encourage town meeting members to vote no on this motion, which puts the interest of one builder ahead of the interests of many Reading residents and protection of the wetland. Thank you.
Mr. Carnahan?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Joe Carnahan, Precinct 7. Mr. Moderator, with your permission, I'd like to read a note from a town meeting member who could not be present tonight, Joseph McDonough, who is in Precinct 8 and is actually in a butter to this project.
Okay.
Thank you. Here's his note. As a concerned neighbor, town meeting members, please vote no on Article 17 and prevent loss of secondary protection of wetland and wildlife habitat, increased impervious area as a result of a larger buildable area than the approved house. The water saturation, flooding in this area has always been a significant concern of myself and many neighbors in the area. Additional water, stormwater runoff issues in a currently very wet area, which we all know causes a natural habitat for mosquitoes, which increasingly carry very harmful diseases, i.e. West Nile, Eastern equine encephalitis. Additional tree removal. Approximately 40 mature trees have already been removed. Finally, this lot has been previously listed for sale. Once the drainage easement is removed, it is gone forever and transfers with said property. Current owner intent can always change with future owners. Thank you, Joe McDonough, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8, Finance Committee Member. Thank you.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes, I submitted some photographs of what this area looked like before it was developed, and I'm not sure, we were hoping we'd be able to put them up so you would have a view of what it would be like. All right, these are, I'm trying, I can't see that great from here, but this was what it was like in 2023. There's a white fence that is on the side of a net lane. Basically, Martin Road and Deborah Drive are between Applegate and Annette. That area, as far as neighbors, there are about 12 properties that abut a drainage ditch that is where water has in the past pooled on this property that they're discussing removing in the back part, removing the hill and all that stuff. So what's happened in the past 2 years is as the area has been cleared, there are many fewer trees. Now that's what it would pool like in the past. The water comes actually from springs in Spruce Road, this is all Precinct 8. And that white fence in the back was a white fence you just saw next to a very old, fire hydrant. And if you put another slide, okay. End of June, mostly July 4th weekend last year of 2024, it was a great deal of tree removal then. Now, granted, there were some conservation meetings, and there was a CPDC meeting. A problem is that where this is, there's a drainage ditch that came from the pooling area, went down behind Deborah Drive, and then and sort of parallel Deborah Drive, Applegate, then under Deborah Drive, perpendicular to Covey Hill, which is where I live, and my neighbors also then it would turn, and then it would go around the back of homes on Franklin Street, Covey Hill, under Franklin. And so there are about 12 properties that have the drainage ditch that comes from this area that go behind them. Now, we, since the 1980s, have never had a wet backyard. And this is a dry season for generally what we've had. And yet, you know, the drainage ditch is flowing pretty fast. And it in the past has even dried up in August. There were a lot of trees that moved. If you let's see, you know, if you could go to the last picture, that shows a Google Maps picture of what it looked like before the trees were removed. The one on the right, yeah. Not that one. I think that should, hopefully it will show up. Yeah, all right. On the right is Annette, and on the left is Applegate. And all those trees in there existed. It was this kind of a ponding area that is, it's to the bottom, and then, but it was all trees. And, but now, so that gives you an idea of what it looked like then. All right, then if we can go back to the, all right, those top ones, okay. The top, if you go horizontally that way, okay, we had that. This is how much water the pools, and there's a lot of wildlife, and that white fence. So this is the view from Applegate. Applegate is, and so none of these didn't ever connect during the development in the 1960s. But that's the kind of water that would pool there, and therefore it wasn't going down through the drainage ditch into people's backyards, because that's kind of a natural area. There are turkeys, there are tons of other wildlife that were there. If you could move to another photo. All right, yeah, that's the old fire hydrant, which has been moved by the builder to another part. And in fact, there's a 2-foot walkway that has been put in that some people are very concerned about because it's kind of a hazard. It's boardwalk. Another picture, please. All right, this is what happened when it was built, when they cleared it off in this picture would be from July of 2024. Another picture, please. And this is when they were building a boardwalk in the back. And just to the left of that boardwalk is where it's very muddy, and that was an area that shouldn't have had machinery in it, but it did. And that was in July of 2024. Next picture, please. All right, and there's the white fence. That's a house that's on the corner of, it's on Martin Road, and it's also on the corner of Annette. And Annette, this driveway, so picture the trees that you could see from Google Maps, and yet this is what it's like now. And there was a hill behind that digger, but that's been leveled. Next one, please. Okay, this is what it began to look like. They began to put some, they're not called bales, but they almost look like snakes, and they hold the water from getting up there, and that's the white, and it was back, and they've got piles on either side. Now, to the left, which you can't see, but that would be a house on Applegate, and then there are also houses, their backyards line, and right to the left is where there's a drainage ditch that goes down in the backyards of people on Deborah. Okay, next picture, please. So this is still July. Okay, this is probably, no, the trees are down. The trees don't have leaves. This is pretty much, the grass wasn't in there yet. So this was probably in the fall, last fall. They put the asphalt down. It's a very wide area. There was, our big concern for us is the water, and that people downstream are going to be affected by this with much more. And that's been leveled off. There's a white fence on the right, but you can't see it from this, but that's the angle there. And I believe they're supposed to be, but I couldn't find out from town officials, and maybe someone can answer. There was supposed to be stormwater infiltration that was put in where those, near where those drainage areas are. But we don't know if they're effective yet, if they've actually been implemented. Next picture, please. Okay, and this is a more recent picture that shows the grass that they've planted. And you're still looking there, considering the people downstream are on the left side and around. Next picture, please. Okay, and that's kind of how it looks in the fall, no, in the spring. This is before, before the leaves have really been able to come up. Next picture. Okay, probably should have seen that one first. But, and that just to the north of that, so you've got across, you have Annette Lane, and then you have Applegate. But anyway, that's similar to what Martha Moore just showed.
Ms. Cooper, you're just about out of time. Can you begin to
Oh,
wrap
yeah,
it
well,
up?
I think we're almost there.
Okay.
There's another picture? Is there another one? Okay. This was taken, I believe, yesterday. And you can see what it looks like now, but we're very concerned that the 12-plus properties downstream are going to have a problem depending on if they build further, because where those trees are, you can see this Article 17 would be going behind that where the trees are. So more trees would be removed. Is there another picture? I don't know if there were. Oh, that's it. You're in the end. you can rest now, guys. But so the idea we have is we're really concerned that if this easement is removed, that there'll be more water. There'll be an effect on this that will affect these properties all the way down until you get to the golf course. So that's. Any questions?
Ms. Herrick?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Karen Herrick, Precinct 8 and Select Board. I was just wondering, I did want to thank the Conservation Commission for distributing materials to town meeting via email in advance. And I did want to ask whether the Conservation Commission had taken an official vote on whether they would recommend this article to town meeting.
Ms. Moore?
This article did not come before the Conservation Commission to vote.
Okay, so I've been a town meeting member for 23 years, so we do see other committees weighing in on articles. I don't know if there was an explicit reason why we wouldn't have included the Conservation Commission in this particular article. I am grateful that we got the information that we've gotten tonight, but I would ask that in the future, that these kind of articles, when they have gone before other official town committees, that we remind the committees that they ought to take a vote on an opinion, express an opinion to town meeting, and then they can include some of this background in the town warrant article. I think we've done it in the past. It makes for better decision-making. And I do share some of the previous speakers' concerns about the unexpected conditions that are created when we move lots of trees, and how ironic we've just updated the FEMA map. So I caution this body, we need to be careful about this, and but that's it. Thank you.
Ms. Letterio?
Yes, thank you. Eileen Letterio. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Precinct 8. For over 46 years, I've been a resident and a homeowner on Deborah Drive. And we actually have an easement on our property to control the flow of water coming from the wetlands across the street. In the early 1980s, residents from Applegate Lane, Annette Lane, Deborah Drive, and Covey Hill all mobilized to prevent a contractor from creating a street and constructing homes behind the homes that abut the area, and now under our review. Back then, with the support of the Conservation Committee at that time, the contractor actually withdrew his proposal and donated a section of that area to the town, with the exception of the one parcel under discussion this evening. At this point, I join with the many neighbors' voices that will cast a vote not to pass this article. The excessive tree removal over the past 2 years will negatively impact water absorption and cause flooding damage to homes and yards in the areas I mentioned earlier. The Article 17 proposal to remove the easement from town ownership disregards the needs of many homeowners by prioritizing the wishes of that one petitioner over the many residents who are against this motion. So I respectfully ask all of you to please vote no to Article 17. Thank you.
Mr. DeRizzo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tony DeRezzo, Precinct 2. This property went through many meetings with CPDC and Conservation. The neighbors did turn out in force to note that they experienced flooding today. Even though this easement is listed as a drainage easement, it is actually more of a retention pond for seasonal flooding. And if it is removed, you can expect the neighbors to have more serious flooding in their properties. My recommendation is town meeting deny this motion and allow the developer to return to Conservation where he can make his proposal and it can be properly vetted. Thank you.
Further discussion? Mr. Talbot?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Dave Talbot, Precinct 5. Can you just remind me why is this article, who recommended the article be brought to town meeting? Select Board?
We went through the normal process, but this was a request that we got. Legal counsel was involved as well. And, you know, we looked at it with engineering. It's a request to discontinue this easement. Engineering says we don't need it anymore. It's not my decision to make, it's town meeting's decision. So I've got a request from a developer and a lawyer to bring this to town meeting, to have town meeting decide on it, given that they claim it burdens the property, and they also claim that it would move their development further away from the wetland. So,
okay.
So that's how it got before you. But I don't have the authority, town council will tell you, to make that decision. That's a town meeting decision.
No, I just thought, I didn't know developers could just put articles before town meeting. I thought they had to go through some.
They went through the normal process, like I said. You know, we brought it, but it was a request that I didn't have the authority to grant, and so town meeting is the proper venue for it.
I'll be voting no. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Phil Dardino, Precinct 3. Move the question.
Okay, we have a motion to end debate. Is there a second? Second. Okay, it requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of ending debate, please rise. $53.
55.
55. And those opposed to ending debate? Zero.
Excuse me. There was someone standing up.
Okay, one. For the noes, yes, this is for the noes.
4.
4. The vote being 108 in the affirmative, 4 in the negative, the motion passes, carries, and we have ended debate. We will now go to the vote on the main motion, which also requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of the motion, please rise. Zero?
0.
All right, if even one person stands up, I'll declare it. It is a majority, a unanimous vote opposed. Is there any questions about that? Okay. This loses by a unanimous vote. Okay. Here's our favorite article, the one I have to explain to every year. Article 18 is in there according to our home rule charter. If you haven't been at least half of the meetings, you are subject to removal. So every year we have a motion listing the people who are subject to removal. If we should vote this the way it stands, the four people on the, the four people on the list would be removed from town meeting. But before we do that, we ask each precinct to discuss this, and I call on the precinct chairs to see if they want to make a motion to remove the name from the list, which would leave them in town meeting. So for precinct 3, we have 2 members, and Mr. Bruce is the chair. Mr. Bruce here, do you have a report?
Microphone, please.
Oh, excuse me.
Microphone, please.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Bruce.
Doug Bruce, Precinct 3 Chairman. We vote to keep these 2 people on the list.
Okay, you want to keep them on the list, which would mean that they would be removed from town meeting.
That is
Should
correct.
this pass, correct. Okay, Precinct 7, Mr. Pilyavsky is the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Precinct 7 voted to remove Carrie Donnell from this list.
From this list, so you would leave her in town meeting. Okay, and just
Thank
to
you.
let you know that the Precinct 8 person has resigned, so we're not voting on that. So right now, we have a motion before us to remove the name of Carrie Donnell from the list, which would allow her to stay in town meeting. Is there any discussion on that? None appearing. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And those opposed? The motion carries. That name is removed from the list. If there's any other discussion on this, we will now vote on the main motion, which would remove 2 names from 2 of the people from town meeting. All those in favor of the motion under Article 18, please raise your hand. And those opposed? And the motion carries. Okay, that brings us up to,
Motion to adjourn, sine die.
okay, we have a motion to adjourn sine die. Before I take that, I will explain to you, it's your perfect right to do that. If you do, any of the instructional motions will just remain unacted on, but that is something that you are allowed to do. So we have a motion to adjourn sine die. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor of adjourning sine die, please raise your hand. And those opposed? And the motion does not carry. Do we have a motion under Article 3? Anybody want to remove Article 3 from the table? Okay, we have a motion to remove take Article 3 from the table. Is there a second? Second. All right, Article 3 is removed from the table, and I will take these. Let's see. We have 6 instructional motions. The first one I call on is Eric Gaffin.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is Eric Gaffin, Precinct 4. I'll try to keep this brief. I know everybody wants to go home. Many of you know that the Recreation Department, the schools, and many other organizations in town have worked very hard to expand adaptive programming over the years. 2 such great examples, one happens on this court as well as Coolidge sometimes, the remarkable unified basketball team at the high school, as well as the adaptive swim lessons and a joint effort between the YMCA and the Recreation Department. For many years, one of the only ways to create and fund some of these additional adaptive programming was to rely on ARPA dollars and private donations. I'm hoping that with the support of this body and passing this instructional motion, the town and schools can explore and find a consistent way to fund existing and expanded adaptive programming needs in Reading. The goal here is simple, to find a sustainable funding mechanism to support adaptive programming instead of the piecemeal kind of short-term funding that currently exists. ARPA funds obviously don't really exist anymore. I've met with the superintendent, the town manager, members of their respective staffs, and received their commitment to follow through on the instructional motion and to explore these options. They're all very supportive and ready to act. Hopefully, the town meeting here will demonstrate Reading's support for this critical need in town and to support what I feel is a woefully underserved population in our town. Thank you.
Okay, before proceeding, and this applies to all 6 of these, keep in mind, these are non-binding, and they are the thoughts of a person who's making it. So be careful about amending it, because you could change, very easily change what the proposal was by the person who had made the motion. So before we proceed, is there a second on that? Second. Okay, further discussion. Ms. Binder, do you have?
Thank you, Angela Binder, Precinct 5. I saw a school committee meeting where students who are involved in the adaptive, unified sports program were speaking to the school committee, and it seems like a really wonderful program, and I do hope that the superintendent and the school committee find a way to fund this, possibly through their own budget or possibly through another source. However, I'm wondering about this because it says existing town funds and future donations from the Burbank Ice Arena Ice Authority. Can Mr. Gaffin tell me what donations we receive from the Burbank Ice Authority? Because I don't believe that we do. I know that in 2011 we entered into a lease agreement with Burbank, and we receive rental payments in lieu of taxes. The Burbank makes no donation. So is that the money that you're talking about?
Burbank Ice Authority, any money above and beyond their, what they hold in reserve goes back to the town. We've talked about this previously in other amendments or other things happening over the last few nights. Again, this is a suggestion that there is funding available. There's some, and I'm making it a suggestion that we examine, can we use those funds potentially for adaptive programming? This is not binding. This is not saying you must take these funds, you must use X, Y, or Z. I would just like the town to be aware, trying to make everybody aware that these funds do exist. Maybe somebody wants to look at how we can distribute those equitably across the entire town and schools, and falling short of that, it really matters not to me how adaptive programming is going to get funded. Again, it's just a suggestion up there. So.
But again, I think it's really important to note that these aren't donations. These are payments, rental payments in lieu of taxes that for many, many years went to the operating budget. And I also am wondering, there was a member of the Burbank Ice Arena that went to the rec committee, am I correct, and talked about how Burbank Authority wants this money spent. I'm pretty sure I was at that meeting. I'm not imagining this, right? That there was a board member from the Burbank Ice Arena that went to the Recreation Committee to suggest that this money goes there. And again, I heard this last August, and I don't have a problem with finding some source for funding. I think it's a fabulous program. But again, I'm really concerned with a Burbank Ice Arena board member going to town and making suggestions for how we spend that money. I think it's really inappropriate to do this. It's also a bad idea to fund something like an ongoing program, because I've had a conversation, I think, with Ms. Angstrom or another town official about how we don't know how much money will be coming in. And it is not a good idea to try to use the Burbank money to fund an ongoing program. So I would.
So I'll respond. I'd like to respond because I do.
Speaker at a time.
Well, I think it's a great idea. From what I hear, this is already happening. And so I like the idea of funding it. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful program. I hope the school committee, I hope the superintendent find a way to fund it from their budget or somewhere else. But there needs to be some other thought about how those Burbank monies, they're not directed towards anything. I was at that meeting, and I also said it's not right that all of that money gets directed towards recreation. It might need to go to somewhere else. So I'm going to vote.
One speaker at a time, please.
Yeah.
Are you finished?
Yeah, so
I'm
again, I'm looking for a sustainable funding mechanism. I gave a couple suggestions. I know that Nelson Burbank and the Ice Authority and the board members of the Burbank family would love for monies from them going back to the town to be for programming like this. That's a big part of their legacy. I'm not going to speak any more above and beyond that, other than that's what I continuously hear. They make donations to other parts of town. I'm sure they would be happy to continue to make donations to other programming in town. I think this is, I'm hoping that we can explore a way to utilize whatever funds are available in whatever way so that we have a sustainable mechanism for adaptive programming. I think somebody here in town once said that the budget really shows what the town's priorities are, and I would like to see something in either the school or the town side budget that reflects that with adaptive programming. And I'm just asking for the town meeting to support that effort, and then I leave it to the people who are much smarter than I am in town and in the school committee to do that.
You all set, Ms. Bender?
Oh, okay, I just wanted to be clear, there are no donations from Burbank Ice Arena. It's a rent in lieu of taxes.
Ms. Alvarado?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Vanessa Alvarado, Precinct 5. I support this motion. I think it's lovely. For those who may not know, Mr. Gaffin, could you explain what adaptive programming is?
Mr. Gaffin?
Sure. Thank you for asking. Appreciate it, Vanessa. So adaptive programming, a unified basketball team is the easiest example. It's making programming that is not normally accessible to people with perhaps a disability, either as physical or mental, and allowing them to access activities that they normally would not have. So swim lessons at the Y are done by specialists in order to accommodate all sorts of people that otherwise would not otherwise be able to participate. The unified basketball team, again, we're hoping that in the future they can do something with wheelchairs. We're hoping that there's other programs. Track has started to go into adaptive programming. So lots of different ways. I think Dr. Milishevsky talked about the money saved by keeping students in district. I do think that the more we expand programming outside of just academics and emotional needs for students, physical needs are also just as important. So this is another aspect of that, and hopefully giving kids in our district the opportunities that, frankly, everybody else has. So, thank you.
Ms. Herrick?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Karen Herrick, Precinct 8. I love the idea. I'm glad that we've been able to make a start on adaptive sports programs. I too have a real problem with specifically targeting funding for this. And I would not support this motion because I would not support using this funding source, which could support our operating budget, but I discussed it as part of a conversation. And I also wanted to add that the Burbank Ice Arena Authority is a 501c. They are absolutely allowed to fundraise. And so that might be a great way for them to contribute, and something, if they feel so strongly about this, is that to exercise their power to fundraise and provide us a healthy chunk of the sustainable funding that we need to do more of these great programs. So thank you.
Ms. Snowdoxer?
Linda Snowdoxer, Precinct 1. I am fully in support of this article. The unified sports are good for everybody that participates, and having a revolving fund of some kind with funds coming from different places, it's not necessarily, as I heard Mr. Gaffin say, it does not have to be from the Burbank. That was just a suggestion. And I love the idea of the town staff and authorities putting their heads together and finding a way to create a revolving fund to support this that helps everybody in our town. Thank you, Mr. Gaffin and the staff.
On the other side?
Elizabeth Blumen, Precinct 8, Newtown member. Hello, everyone. My son is a sixth grader at Coolidge. He is not a child that would have necessarily needed adaptive sports, but he did participate in the unified basketball, and I'll tell you that it was an incredible benefit for him in his role supporting his peers who needed adaptive sports. I'm personally a social worker, so it warmed my heart to see the kids working together across the season, and I would support any funding that we're doing for this. I think we focus a lot on the benefit that it has to children with special needs, which goes without saying, that's obvious, but the benefit that it has for all of the children in our schools and really developing acceptance and understanding that each of us is different in our own way. So I fully support this motion as well.
This side.
Christopher Futo, Precinct 4. I move the question.
Move the question. Okay, we're moving the question on the first of the instructional motions. It requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of ending debate, please rise. (52)
47.
47. Those opposed to ending debate.
Seven.
3 and 7. The vote being 99 in the affirmative, 10 in the negative. The question has been moved. We will now move to the vote on the first of the instructional motions. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And those opposed? And the motion carries. Okay, the second instructional motion, Ms. Doctor.
Thank you. Nancy Doctor, Precinct 1. This was a proposed charter change that I have presented to the Charter Review Committee, and they were informed of my intent to present this as an instructional motion as a way to expand the discussion. This would, as per section 2.12.2 of the Reading Town Charter, that the bylaw committee study, review, and submit their findings to Reading Town Meeting regarding changing the Board of Health positions from appointments made by VASC, a subcommittee of the Reading Select Board, to elected positions. This would be similar to elections for Select Board, Reading Municipal Light Department, School Committee, Library Board, Moderator. Electing rather than appointing Board of Health members would ensure both accountability to the population they serve and independence from interference by other elected officials. Board of Health members were in fact once elected. I believe that changed, and the town clerk can clarify, about 40 or 50 years ago. What year?
1986.
1986. They changed from being elected to being appointed. This would give power back to our residents. Electing rather than appointing would be a boost for democracy. It would improve accountability. This charter change, I don't believe, would, quote, open the floodgates to making more boards or committees subject to elections, for the sole reason that the Board of Health is not like any other board or committee in this town. Massachusetts legislation grants power to local boards of health through statutes that authorize them to deal with environmental, health, sanitation issues at the local level. No other board or committee has that statute in town. Board of Health members are accountable to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This proposed charter change is not due to the credentials or the integrity of any volunteers, but is due to the actions of both current and past Select Board members. Transparency needs to be both voiced and practiced. This charter change would be a safeguard to protect the autonomy and independence of the Board of Health from interference from other elected officials. To give you a little background, back in 2016 or 2017, a former Select Board member openly opined in a Select Board meeting that they, the Select Board, could manipulate public health policy through their appointments if they did not like a public health policy. This was actually in response to the Board of Health banning flavored tobacco. Now, I believe the state of Massachusetts made a statewide ban in 2020 for flavored tobacco. Some of the other concerns, the Select Board a number of years ago, despite advocating the need for volunteers, they sat on a subject matter expert's application for about a year. They actually refused to appoint a physician who was listed as a chief medical officer, as well as having executive health expertise. This is really interesting because most cities, actually all cities and most municipalities, require a physician to be on the Board of Health or someone with an advanced health degree. These are obviously guidelines that our own Select Board do not follow. That took place during the pandemic. They also refused to appoint a master's trained epidemiologist with 30 years of experience. That was also during the pandemic. They refused to consider the recommendation of both the current chair of the Board of Health, a physician, and the vice chair, a healthcare professional, in deciding who to grant full voting membership to. I believe we need to actually make a charter change, and I hope you support this. Thank you.
Is there a second to that? Second? Is there further discussion? Mr. Sexton.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kevin Sexton, Precinct 8, and a member of the Board of Health currently. I'm going to keep this very simple. I could go into a long explanation as to why this might be the worst thing that's come before this town meeting before. But if you want to politicize the Board of Health, by all means, make it elected. Right now, the Board of Health is probably one of the most functioning boards of health that has created one of the most functioning public health departments that we have in and around this community. We used to be a laughingstock back when it was a three-person board. Nancy will remember this. She was a member of that board. By all means, if you want to politicize the Board of Health, go ahead and make it elected. It will be absolutely the worst decision that town meeting would make or any future warrant article that would come before this committee. Thanks.
Ms. Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Vanessa Alvarado, Precinct 5. So in response to Mr. Sexton's comment,
could you move just a little closer to the mic?
Excuse me?
Just a little bit closer to the mic.
The history that Ms. Doctor referenced is actually when qualified candidates for the Board of Health were not appointed by the Select Board for political reasons. The Select Board at that time voted to appoint an unqualified person who was, in fact, a former Select Board member to a position where we needed a professional, and she was not appointed for political reasons. So, to me, this makes the process much more public. It makes it open to the entire community. It means that candidates for this very important board, which we have seen the importance of through the pandemic, it means that those candidates can make their case to the residents, and residents can decide for themselves who they want to represent them on this board. I fully support this motion. Thank you.
Would you have a
Just
comment?
follow-up?
Yep.
It's really important to note that the physician who was denied a seat on the board, I had information from a former health director that has been the only physician who's ever applied to the Board of Health. I made a mistake in my presentation to the Charter Committee in quoting that Dr. Green was the last physician. Dr. Green, Dr. Taylor have never been on the Board of Health. They were paid consultants to the Health Department a number of years ago. As far as she could tell, there has never been a physician who's ever applied to our Board of Health.
Our current chair is a physician.
Our current chair is on the Board of Health because he was denied a position, actually,
Okay, let's...
to reappoint.
Stop doing the back and forth here.
To reappoint someone. In fact, he's on the Board of Health because there was an unexpected resignation, and the Select Board reached out to him and asked him to reconsider.
Okay, now we're going to move to Ms. Murphy.
Well, I believe I was referenced by the previous speaker on that side.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Again, Kevin Sexton, Precinct 8, and I am the selectman that Vanessa is referencing. The question you have to ask yourself is, why did I want to get onto the Board of Health at the time? Again, the Board of Health at the time was doing personal political agendas, was not trying to help the residents of this town, was not trying to help staff in this town. If you want more of that to continue, again, please do make it an elected body.
Over here.
Melissa Murphy, Precinct 8 member, Select Board member. I just wanted to make it known to the body that this did come to the charter review and they decided not to change the bylaw or their charter. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Pacino?
Mr. Moderator, Phil Pacino, Precinct 5. Melissa just stole all my thunder. I'm a former member of the Charter Review Committee. This was brought in front of the Charter Committee. We considered it, and Chris Haley, who was chair of that committee, can speak if he wants to. We consider it. We decided that it was best in the interest of the town to leave it as an appointed position, so we get qualified people who can be. If you have an issue, and I said at the time, if there's an issue with the appointments, you change the appointment committee.
Mr. Arena.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Arena, Precinct 1. I think the proponent of this instructional motion noted that the current state of appointed positions has been in place for 40 years. I'm a big proponent of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Second of all, these positions are nominated at the pleasure of the VASC and voted on by the Board of Selectmen. So the senior executive body of this town, whom everyone in this room knows, they're standing right in front of you, are accessible and available. If you're talking about a single elected official in the suggestion case, you're highly unlikely to know that individual. They don't necessarily have the same public presence as a Board of Selectmen. Lastly, elected officials who are physicians are required in the state of Massachusetts for cities. They're not required for towns. So in my opinion, the suggestion is a size 13 shoe for a size 6 foot. It's really the wrong size solution for a problem that I don't understand in the first place.
Further discussion? Yes.
Christopher Feudo, Precinct 4. Select Board member Murphy referenced another town meeting member referenced a review of this by the Charter Review Committee. I wonder if we could have additional information as to if there was a formal vote taken on that, and I'm not following the goings-on of the Charter Review Committee, but maybe some explanation about what the membership of the Charter Review Committee looks like.
Do we have a response? Mr. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Charter Review Committee, on every single item that was brought to the Charter over the course of a year, was decided upon by the entire committee, and every single thing that was brought to us in an informal vote or a formal vote was unanimous, other than the RMLD carve-out section where Ray, I believe, abstained from that. Other than that, this has been discussed at the Charter Committee. The makeup of that committee is what I would consider apolitical. Everybody didn't get what they want. Everybody didn't get what they want. It was all, like I said, unanimous, and it's very, how do I put it, very diverse group of candidates that do not all share the same opinion in this instance, shared the opinion to keep this as it is. It was heavily discussed.
Okay,
discussion?
so a formal vote was taken and it was a 9-0 vote?
There was no formal vote. It was.
Okay, so that
because
was
it
my
didn't-
question.
But it was still informal and it was unanimous.
How
Because
could
we
there be an
didn't- we
informal
didn't-
vote that was unanimous?
Because the vote on the charter was done at the end on every single article that was presented.
Okay, so there was not a specific vote on this issue?
No, there was a discussion in an informal.
That wasn't
vote
my
on-
question.
Yes. Like I said, there was a discussion, an informal vote on this, and it was unanimous that everybody wanted to keep it the same. And if you want an official vote, it would have been the same.
I don't want anything, I just want an answer to my question.
That's the answer to the question.
Hold on one second.
The charter committee has not taken an official vote on anything as of yet on the charter. Everything that has been discussed, there's been an unofficial vote. There has been not an official vote on anything within the charter change.
Thank you for an answer, I appreciate it.
That's actually, I don't believe, correct either. We did take a vote at the end.
No, we have not.
I disagree with you. Ivrea just agreed that we did take a vote at the end. That's why this is moving forward. Informally, we've discussed this. This specific article, the entire charter has been voted on. It is over. You can say that it wasn't. I'm telling you that it was. Alan, you can answer too. Was it, Alan?
I'm staying out of this.
Come on, Alan. You get to vote. We voted on the charter. It was unanimous. Other than Ray, I can't be making this up in my head, that Ray Porter abstained from the RMLD section in the charter vote. A vote happened.
Okay, further discussion.
I'm not making this up.
Who's next over here? Mr. Barnes?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jonathan Barnes, Precinct 5, and a member of the Charter Review Commission. Perhaps to clarify, I hope, this question came up to the Charter Review Commission. There was discussion about it. There were comments pro and con. The commission did not vote specifically on this issue. And the Charter Commission Review also was aware that Ms. Doctor intended to present this to town meeting after the discussion with the Charter Review Commission. Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening, Adi Bengali, Precinct 3, and first-year member, so going to educate myself a little bit on it. So as I understand, the select committee members are voted on. As I understand, the library members are voted on. As I understand, the moderator is voted on. And those are critical committees in my opinion, right? They're deciding your futures kids' futures and all that. So I'm just trying to understand why this particular body is only looked from a political sense and the rest of them are not. And then more importantly, again, more education for me. The select members are elected, and let's not be naive that select members also run with a certain agenda. So it's not like anyone comes in unbiased and is just purely acting without self-interest or self-motivation. So all I'm saying is, why single out this particular issue as, oh, we are politicizing it, and leave the rest out of it? That's all. It's more education than anything else. Thank you.
Further discussion? Are we ready for the vote? All those in favor of this instructional motion, please raise your hand. And those opposed? And the chair is in doubt. All those in favor, please rise.
Fourteen.
14? 34. Those opposed, please rise. 19?
Forty-five.
45. The vote being 48 in the affirmative, 64 in the negative, the motion does not carry.
Thank you very much for your consideration, though.
Third instructional motion, Mr. Sasso. We have a motion to adjourn sine die. Is there a second? Second. All right, this requires, non-debatable, requires a majority vote. All those in favor of adjourning sine die, what's the point of order? There is one by John Sasso, two of them. Okay, one is, let's see, in the event that the town approves that by vote of the town meeting, and then its citizens to fund the recalc, then the select board initiate the process to market and sell the Pleasant Street Center upon completion of the recalc construction, and it goes on. The next one, the above-named board, Select Board, Town Accountant, and Finance Committee, and town staff identify and allocate $500,000 annually from within the levy budget to apply toward the cost of either the Killam School or the recal, depending on whether one or both projects are approved, to pay down the excluded debt. Number 5, let's see if I got that right. Yeah, number 5, town meeting after let's see. Okay, town meeting after discussing the matter for an hour and 20 minutes approved $110,000 for parking kiosk at the select board request, with the understanding that the cost would be recouped after a couple of years of use. The select board discontinued their use after a short trial period, as they were able to do. I am requesting only an account of money spent for machines and any collected. And the 6th one is, within 60 days, the town of Reading shall determine and publicly report all instances dating back 20 years in which the town has seized property for unpaid taxes or for any other reason, disposed of it in any manner, whether by sale or otherwise, and received funds or any other form of good value exceeding the taxes and/or other monies owed. Okay, so we now have a
Point of
motion before us
information,
to
Mr.
adjourn
Moderator. I
sine
was
die.
planning to withdraw my second motion. Thank you.
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
Point of information, I was planning to withdraw my second motion. Thank you.
Oh, you were, okay, okay, so the second one would be withdrawn. Okay, all those in favor of adjourning sine die, please raise your hand. Those opposed? And the chair is in doubt. Could I have a standing count? All those in favor of adjourning sine die, please rise.
42.
42? 25? And those opposed to adjourning sine die, please rise. Twenty?
17.
17. The vote being 67 in the affirmative and 37 in the negative, this town meeting stands adjourned, sine die.